Jesse, welcome back to A's Cast Live. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How's it going?
We just been talking about it because of all the, I don't know how much you follow golf, but the way the PGA Tour is changing, there's a lot of craziness going on, happening as we speak. The commissioner is talking today. They had the meeting with all the players, and because of the changes with Live Golf, it's been fascinating. And I was just talking about Full Swing, the documentary on Netflix for golf, then Drive to Survive, the one for Formula One that's been so successful. I said, this is what people want. You want to bring new people into our sport. And I was thinking about if there was one of the teams, I talked about the Giants and the winter meetings and Judge to Correa. And I think, how about if a crew from MLB Network was following around the San Diego Padres? I mean, the stuff that's been going on with the Padres, just this, Nando's coming back. You got Machado's going to opt out. He's re-signed. Darvish. I mean, the excitement in San Diego. Fan Fest was so big. You didn't have enough security and everything. The Padres would be a great team. If we did basically like a Hard Knocks, what has been so successful in the NFL, if we did that for baseball, think about if they did that around the Padres, how exciting that would be.
Well, I give the Padres credit because while I'm sure a lot of it may never end up seeing the light of day, I mean they are documenting all of this internally. So they'll have the footage, they'll have it, ready to go. They can turn it into whatever they want to turn it into. But I mean, everywhere we go around here, there are real deal film crews that work for the Padres. So they are documenting all this. I think there's a really good understanding around here that what's happening could be historic, is special, and they want to make sure they have that footage. What that turns into, I don't know, but I think they recognize the importance of, hey, let's get it all, and then we'll kind of see where it goes. Obviously, if the team wins the World Series at the end of this year, to be able to have this footage from spring training and throughout the entire season is going to be really valuable as you put together all of those postseason videos and everything like that. So they are definitely thinking that way. And look, I was lucky enough when I worked for the Dolphins, the year Hard Knocks came, I got to be around it. And that operation is remarkable. It really is. And there's no question, it's great entertainment. It's great television. It drives some interest. F1 obviously is the great example. I don't know that it always is going to accomplish necessarily, though, like more people caring about the sport. Just because it's good TV doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to that. Now, in F1, it has, because that's blown up. It feels like it's gone from 0 to 100 in this country, at least, the last couple of years. But like the golf one, with everything else, as you mentioned, that's going on with golf, I don't know that I'm like necessarily saying, all right, look, the show is compelling, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if that means people are necessarily going to be watching like Friday and Saturday at the Honda Classic now more than they would have been. Although, maybe I'll be wrong and we'll see. But I'm with you. Like, I think more is always great, in terms of access and in terms of getting to know these guys as human beings. We're lucky enough to be on the inside and get a good taste of that. But yeah, for fans to be able to see more of the human side, to me, is always a positive.
When I was a kid growing up in San Diego, I grew up right next to San Diego State, grew up going to the Murph. Ray Kroc owned the team, and he went for it. So that's when they brought in Goose Gossage, and they brought in Nettles, and they brought in, Garvey was traded for. A young Tony Gwynn and Alan Wiggins was coming up, and they had a great year. They shocked the Cubs and then got drilled by the Tigers in the World Series. But it was a great run. They spent a lot of money then. Now what's happening in San Diego, the money is so historic. It's really mind-blowing. Peter Seidler going all in. Just talk about what it's like to be around this, to where we're talking about past 2024, it's well over $1 billion has been committed by the Padres, more than any other team in Major League Baseball. It's been a wild ride, especially with the money. What has that been like, being around this team and the financial commitment that that's coming?
For one, it's fun. Let's start there. For two, this is what I've been telling people. The singular goal of this ownership and this organization is to win a World Series. It's not the top priority. It is the priority. And look, you're running a business. You normally have multiple priorities, right? And I'm not saying they're putting everything else aside. They still want to be impactful in the community. They still care about lots of other stuff. But like, really and truly, it's about winning a World Series. Or at least I should say, putting the team in a position to win the World Series. Because I think we all do know, once you get into October, weird stuff can happen and all that. But to give them the best opportunity they could possibly have to win a World Series, I think of it as a fan, right? As a fan of a team. And what else could you ever ask for? You know, I mean, what else could you ever want? You know, to be in a position where all they care about is trying to be the team holding the trophy at the end of the season. That is why we watch these games. That is why we care about these games. I know in baseball sometimes it can be easy to forget that because the season is so long and there is that beautiful constancy of MLB, right? And that every night throughout the summer when nothing else is happening, you know, in the world of sports and there's no new TV shows, you have baseball every night. And that's part of why we love this game. That's part of what makes this game so special. But sometimes you can forget they, as Herm said, right? They play to win the games. And like this is it for the Padres. This is like the full financial commitment to say we're going to do everything we can because we want to win a World Series. No team in San Diego, as you know, has ever won a title, you know, in a major sport. And so to be the ones to do that, and I think that trickles down to the players as well. You heard Manny talking about it at his press conference when he got the contract extension. You know, like the opportunity to do something here that has never been done, I think really hits for these guys because you realize it takes you to like a whole nother level of legend. You know, I mean, you can go to this whole other level of like special in a town, in a community where you're going to be remembered forever. You will be immortalized. There will be a statue. They will retire your number. Like those kinds of things that you cannot buy. And for those of us who are lucky enough to be here right now, to just sort of be even on the periphery of it, you know, as an announcer, it's incredibly special. It really is.
Fernando Tatis Jr. coming back. Padres win the World Series. What does he have to do offensively, and where does he play defensively to help this team get to where they want to go?
Yeah, I think defensively, you know, certainly the start is going to be right field. He's a freakish athlete, and that's an important thing to remember here. Now, is he going to look like a guy who's played the outfield his entire life? Probably not. You know, certainly at first, but he's got a great arm, so he's going to have an opportunity to show that off in right field, and he's wildly athletic. You know, I heard somebody the other day on the outside say, you know, he's probably going to make not make some plays that a normal outfielder will make at the beginning, but he's also going to make a bunch of plays that no one else could make. And I think that's probably like the defensive scouting report on him, at least here in the early goings. But he is such a talent that at some point, you know, he's gonna be great out there. He could go out and win a Gold Glove. Like that wouldn't surprise me. I think he's that kind of athlete and he's that kind of baseball player. Offensively, I mean, there's so much depth in this lineup. Like I would hate to say, oh, he's got to hit 30 home runs for them to have a chance because I don't even know if that's necessarily the case. But he's capable of it. You know, he's not going to be eligible to return from the suspension until April 20th. You know, if he does have a fully healthy season after that, he can do some special things. You go back to 2 years ago, he led the National League in home runs, I think with 42, and he only played in 130 games because of injuries that year. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what he's capable of.
You know, the trades, Preller was just wheeling. He was like Jack McKeon back in the day, Trader Jack. I mean, he was wheeling and dealing. And, you know, here comes Hader. Oh, my God, that's incredible. And then it's the Juan Soto was wow. But I can tell you, all my buddies down there, they were not thrilled with the 236 average in 52 games and the whole staring down pitchers and just walking a lot. And I mean, we were looking at the data. He wasn't swinging. He wasn't swinging at balls, which traditionally he doesn't do, right? That's why he walks so much. He wasn't swinging at strikes either. What are your expectations for Juan Soto now? Comfortable spring training, a year where he's now a Padre and he can just focus on this year. I know there will be the talk about the contracts, but now he can just focus on a season. What are the expectations?
Yeah, I think you just hit on all the reasons why I expect him to be Juan Soto again this year. And you're right. Last year he was not at the level that he had sort of always been at as a big leaguer. But if you dig into some of the more advanced numbers, he's still one of the best hitters in baseball last year, which is crazy because the average was down the way it was and the power was down a little bit as well. But he's just that good of an offensive player. I fully expect. You ask my expectations. I fully expect him to look like the Juan Soto that we all, you know, sort of got used to seeing in Washington, even though he's only been in the big leagues for a few years, even though he's still only 24 years old or whatever he is. I think, you know, when he got here, he had a weird year in Washington. You know, he was kind of the lone guy in that lineup. Maybe you start trying to do too many things. Now some bad habits develop. Oh, now there's a mechanical thing that took place. That's hard to unspool inside of a season, right? You know, and I think now with a winter to work on all that stuff, in addition to everything you said about being comfortable here, not showing up and feeling that extra pressure of, hey, you know, this is a World Series contending team that just traded for me. I got to go out and do everything. And again, all he's got to do is look up and down this lineup. And it's going to be the same for all these guys. Like Manny's not going to feel any extra pressure. Xander Bogaerts isn't going to feel any extra pressure. Fernando Tatis shouldn't feel any extra pressure. And Juan Soto shouldn't feel any extra pressure because there's such an absurd amount of talent at the top half of this lineup offensively that, you know, like two of them can be in a tough spot for a few days and this team will be just fine.
I talk about it all the time that somebody has to be at the front of the plane, somebody has to be at the front of the bus, and somebody has to lead the circus. And that is your manager. And I did the Bob Melvin show for 8 years. I know Bob Melvin well. I got him the mattress that he sleeps on every single night. I got him that sponsorship. So we love Bob. Just talk about what he meant coming in. Somebody had to lead the troops. Somebody's got to be that guy, and he's been the perfect guy for the Padres.
Perfect fit. Perfect fit. I mean, sometimes things just really, really work out nicely. And look, obviously, what took place there and sort of the great migration, if you will, or the exodus, of all those guys and kind of resetting the roster there. It for him was a nice time, I'm sure, to be able to try and take on a new challenge. And he's in awe here because this is unlike anything that he's ever been a part of. It's really unlike anything that any of us have seen in baseball. It's not very often that you have the possibility of like 3 or 4 guys who are going to finish the top 5 in MVP voting all in the same clubhouse. But like that's not the craziest thought in the world when you consider those names we just talked about at the top of the lineup. And you want a steady hand, and most importantly, I think you want somebody who has been there and done that as a player and as a manager before. It is a great fit. He is a great man. He is a great manager. He has the respect of all of those guys. He can go in and have that tough conversation if it's ever needed with one of them, and it will matter. It will come off as something they can accept because he does have that history in the game and because he does have that respect. So, boy, did that work out really, really nicely. I love Mark Kotsay, by the way, one of my favorite people in baseball, and for him, a great opportunity, with a younger group to teach and to do all that kind of stuff that he's so good at. 2 different guys, 2 different stages of their managerial careers, of course. And no, I mean, it feels very fortunate that this situation has kind of worked out the way it has here.
This year is interesting because as exciting as it was for the Padres at the end of the year and what happened in the playoffs, they were still far behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. Everybody has still been looking up at the Dodgers other than when the Giants won 107 and the Dodgers won 106. This has still been the Dodgers division. We don't know exactly what they're going to look like. They've got some definite changes going on. But my point is, as excited as everybody is, they still haven't slayed the dragon yet. I know they won a playoff series, and we just did the Diamondbacks yesterday. I'm kind of bullish on the Diamondbacks. We love Torey Lovello. I think they got a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism. I think they're going to be better than people think. But just talk about that, the rivalry between the Padres and the Dodgers. The Padres still need to win a division. That, to me, more will be slaying the dragon than just one playoff series.
I actually disagree, and for a couple of reasons. I think one, like last year really did feel like slaying the dragon because it sort of was like, all right, you went 5-14 against them in the regular year, but so what? The Dodgers walked away, with nothing while the Padres moved on to the National League Championship Series. Now, you add to that the fact that you get rid of 2 series this year with the new schedule. So all of a sudden, it's not 19 games where it felt like every one, but it's just a different feel. They matter that much less mathematically. Like the Dodger games matter less now than they did in the last 20 years. And then the next thing is on top of all of that, the playoff format, and this extra spot. And I know having the bye would be nice, by winning the division. But again, I go back to what I said earlier about the goal is to win the World Series. Whether you win the wild card or the National League West, I don't know that it matters. If you go on to win the World Series, which is what they care about, which is what they're trying to do, I don't think they're going to look back and be like, well, we didn't win the division. So I really feel like it's a goal. Don't get me wrong, and everybody would be thrilled if they won the division, and it would definitely be a big deal. There will be a pen and hung, if they win the National League West in 2023. I don't want to, discount that in any way, but if they win the division and go out of the NLCS, they would much prefer to be a wild card that goes to the World Series. So I think it, in a weird way, it's almost bigger than the Dodgers now for the Padres. That was kind of the dragon. That was kind of the thing that they were chasing, these last few years. And now it again, in part because of the playoff format, in part because of the schedule, and in part because of what happened in the postseason last year, to me at least, and look, we'll see once the season gets going, but to me at least, it kind of feels like it's almost secondary now.
Like who would have thought we'd ever be sitting here having this type of conversation where all of a sudden we're giving the Dodgers a reason to have a chip on their shoulder? Think about that. This is a team, they've been on like an Atlanta Braves type run, right? They've owned this division. That we're now like.
But you know what? Like there's a history lesson there, right? Those Braves teams, they won 1 in '95. I mean, that's and you know, if you went back and talked to Bobby Cox, right, or John Sherholtz, would you be like, hey, would you trade a couple of those division titles for a couple more rings? Of course. You know, I mean, that's the whole point. And I mean, you go back, I say this all the time. You go back to the 80s, the Mets should have won more than one. You go to the 90s, the Braves should have won more than one. You go back to the 2000s, the Phillies should have won more than one. It just shows how hard it is to win a World Series and how impossible it seems to be to win a World Series. The Cubs of the last decade with that group, you know, like you would have thought they'd won more than one. You know, the Astros have now won a second. Obviously, that's a little bit more of a complex situation, but you know, it's really difficult. No team has won back-to-back World Series since the Yankees won in 98, 99, and 2000. The ring is the thing, and it's really hard to do. This is, again, I'm giving the Dodgers credit because the run that they have been on is historic. It is legendary, but as of now, they have the one. And, you know, I think, again, winning the division is nice. It matters less now than it's ever mattered because of the extra playoff teams and it's world. I don't want to say World Series or bust, but World Series is the goal here. It really is.
Well, we just came up with the name for our Netflix series. The Ring is the thing. We'll give you credit. Netflix starting next year. The Ring is the thing.
All right, I get a producer credit too. I'll take 2% of the merchandising, and you know.
We're going to give you some merch. Don't worry. We'll give you some points, as they like to say, and get a little cash for you. Let's end on this. Season's going to get going. AJ Preller calls you into the office and says, how do I improve this team? What do we need to do to guarantee that we're in that World Series and win that World Series? How could they add from here?
The first thing I would say to him is by not asking me. Like, let's start there. I'm the wrong person to ask AJ.
We're bringing you in. We're bringing you in. It's all on you.
My answer is always pitching. It's always pitching. You know, almost, you know, aside from the makeup of the roster or the team, it's always pitching. You know, if you can go out and get like a solid mid-rotation guy, you know, that's having a good year or two, like that's it. For me, it's always pitching. I mean, I look back, you know, you can say this little run for the Padres began in 2020, right? And 2020 was weird, as we all know. 2020, they go into the playoffs. They face the Dodgers in Texas in the division series after they beat the Cardinals here. And they basically ran out of pitching, you know, because of injuries. And then in 2021, things fell apart for the team in August and September. They ran out of pitching. You know, last year in the postseason, they were probably one starter short of, you know, really being in what I would call an ideal position in a best of seven. You know, Mike Clevenger couldn't get out of the first inning of one of the games in Philadelphia, and it basically turned into a bullpen game. That is almost always my answer, you know, and in part because they've kind of felt like they've run out of pitching the last couple of years. But if you look at every great team, you know, baseball's changed a ton in the last 150 years, but the reality is, you know, pitching is still the thing. So for me, it's almost always add more pitching.
Well, I got to tell you, you're doing a great job, and you know, a long list from the Hall of Famer Jerry Coleman, Ted Leitner, Teddy Ballgame, who we have on this show, who I grew up watching. We love to have people on from San Diego, and whether it's Bob Melvin or Ryan Christensen, rooting for everybody down there. A lot of former A's. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. We appreciate the time, and we'll see you during the season. And good luck to you guys.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for all the nice words. Really do appreciate that, and always fun chatting with you. And yeah, I mean, we got good A's connections right now. Billy Beane, of course, is from San Diego. You know, with Bob and Ryan here, Cott's there. It feels like a big brother, little brother, or just or cousins or something. It's really neat. It really is.
And those Netflix checks, they're going to be in the mail. Take care, buddy.
Appreciate it.